Hello, my name is Dr. Bryce Newcomer, and I teach clarinet at Virginia Tech. Today, I'm going to be talking through the Rotation 2 excerpt for VBODA Region 6 for the bass clarinet. This excerpt is in a ABA form, meaning that we have an opening A section in one style that comes back at the end, and a contrasting B section in the middle that's in a different style. In this excerpt, the two sections could not be more different. We have a very lyrical A section with lots of legato articulation, lots of crescendos, decrescendos over the entire measure. In the B section, it's very march-like. We have different articulations, we have staccati and accents. I recommend really bringing out the stylistic differences between these two sections along with the tempo changes. Let's start with the A section that lasts from the beginning through measure 8. In this section, really go for the legato articulations, fill up the entire space of these rhythms. I recommend starting with a nice full mezzo forte sound and showing this crescendo by leading all the way through the E in measure 1, all the way down to the A in measure 2 before you start to decrescendo to mezzo piano. On most bass clarinets, the E in bar 1 is flat. If this is the case for your bass clarinet, I recommend venting. If you haven't vented before, this means opening up a key or a lever in order to bring the pitch up. For E, if it is slightly flat, you can vent it by using the C sharp key. If it's quite flat, you may want to vent it with the bottom side key. Experiment with your instrument and see what works best for you and incorporate this as your E fingering for this excerpt, especially since it is forte, which is just going to bring the pitch down even more. When you get to bar 4, I recommend taking a nice full breath before these 3 eighth note pickups into bar 5. After your breath, really crescendo into bar 5, where you have fortissimo with an accent. Here we have a tricky placement on the bass clarinet by really bringing out our A that's in the throat tones. Like clarinet, the throat tones on the bass clarinet are often thin and lacks resonance. In order to avoid this, we can add a resonance fingering. On A, I recommend at least adding the right hand down. If your A is still a little bit sharp or if it doesn't have enough resonance, you can also add some fingers on the left hand, like the third finger and the second finger to the A. Find what works best for you and your instrument. After the accent in bar 5, begin to back off a little bit, but still keep the full sound through the entire measure. That way, the subito piano, meaning suddenly piano, in bar 6 can be a stark dynamic difference. After this piano, stay soft until the crescendo into the final bar of this section. Really crescendo up to a full dynamic, so you have lots of room to decrescendo as much as you can, holding this fermata. Decrescendo to almost nothing. Show off the bass clarinet's ability to play extremely quietly at the end of phrases. And then let out the bad air, use this double bar in order to recoup before the next section. Take a nice full breath and be sure that your embouchure is set for the B section. The low register of the bass clarinet will speak up a register if you do not have the embouchure set before you begin. Firmly place these first 3 Gs with a very defined articulation. Avoid any muddiness or unclarity at the beginning of this section. Once you've placed these first 3 notes, lead forward into the accent on beat 3, and be sure to subdivide down to at least the 8th note, if not the 16th note, to ensure that you're placing all of these rhythms correctly. Subdivision will also help with the difference between the quarter note triplets in bar 11 and all of these 8th notes, 16th notes, etc. In bar 12, I recommend taking a full breath at the end of the measure before these two 16th notes leading into the next measure. In order to be sure that you're staying in time, please subdivide through bar 12 so that you can place those two 16th notes correctly. Bar 13 tends to rush, so I recommend using these slurs to your advantage. Really dig into these slurs, show off the difference between the slur and the articulated parts of this measure. And then when you get to the end of measure 13, use the side keys, the bottom two side keys, for the F sharp fingering, so you can easily go from E sharp to F sharp up to G. At this section, I recommend keeping the right hand down for the G in bar 14, as well as the entire measure as you go between the clarion register, anything above the break, and the throat tones. This way, not only will you have an easier time crossing the break up and down, but you'll also have lots of resonance in these throat tones, and they'll match the sound of the clarion register above the break. At the end of this B section, before you get to the next section in bar 18, we have a light ritardando into this last note. I recommend taking a little bit of time on these two 16th notes leading up to the C, as well as keeping your right hand down for the G that you're holding in bar 16, as well as the A, so you can easily get from A to B. After the C, let out the bad air, take in a nice full breath before going into the final A section. In this section, we are really going to lead into the crescendo, into the fortissimo, much like before. Use the same fingering you used the first time, and then hold a nice steady sound to the end. And be sure that you're subdividing through bar 24 so you can correctly place these two 16th notes leading into the final note, where you'll stay nice and open so that you're not pinching the sound. We don't want to get any squeaks. We don't want to get any bubbles in the sound. Stay nice and open for this last A as you decrescendo into nothing. I hope you enjoy my performance of this excerpt. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, you can email me anytime at bnewcomer@vt.edu or visit my website, brycenewcomer.com. Happy practicing!